The stars were quiet in this part of the galaxy. No ships traveled here. No signals passed through the empty darkness. It was a forgotten corner of space, far from the busy trade routes and the great empires that ruled the known worlds. Nothing interesting ever happened here, until today. The Valorian scout vessel, Shadow of Inquiry, moved through the darkness like a predator hunting for prey. It was a beautiful ship, built with the advanced technology that made the Valorian supremacy feared across 1,000 star systems. Its hull was smooth and black, designed to absorb sensor beams. Its engines made no sound and left no trail. For 300 years, ships like this one had found new worlds for the supremacy to conquer. Commander? Vexrail stood on the bridge with his forearms folded behind his back. He was tall, even for a Valorian, with gray skin and large black eyes that could see in complete darkness. He had commanded this ship for 20 years, and in that time, he had discovered 12 inhabited worlds. All of them now served the supremacy. Some had joined willingly. Most had not. "Commander," said the sensor officer, a young Valorian named Crix, "I am detecting something strange." Vexrail turned slowly. He did not like the word strange. In his experience, strange things were usually dangerous things. "Explain," he said. Crix's long fingers moved across the control panel. "There is a vessel at the edge of this system. It is not in our database. The design is primitive, very primitive. Show me." The main screen flickered and displayed an image of a ship. Vexrail leaned forward with interest. The vessel was ugly by Valorian standards. It was made of metal plates bolted together, with visible seams and joints. The engine section at the back glowed with a crude blue light. Strange symbols were painted on the hull, letters that Vexrail did not recognize. "What species built this thing?" he asked, "Unknown Commander?" "I am also detecting radio signals coming from the ship. They are unencrypted and very simple." Vexrail made a sound of contempt. Radio signals. The Valorians had stopped using such primitive communication methods thousands of years ago. Whatever species had built this ship, they were clearly not advanced. They would be easy to capture and study. "Take us closer," he ordered, "but keep us hidden. I want to know more about these creatures before we make contact." The Shadow of Inquiry moved silently toward the unknown vessel far away. On the bridge of the USS Horizon, Captain Jack Morrison was having a very bad day. The Horizon was a destroyer, one of the newest ships in the United Earth Fleet. It carried 200 crew members and enough weapons to fight a small war. Jack had been proud to take command of it 6 months ago. Now he was starting to wonder if the ship would ever fly again. "Give me some good news, Danny," he said into the com. The voice that came back was tired and frustrated. "I wish I could, Captain. The main drive is completely dead. I have never seen anything like this. It is like something reached inside and scrambled all the circuits." Jack rubbed his eyes. They had been on a routine patrol when the drive suddenly failed. No warning, no explanation. One moment they were traveling faster than light, and the next moment they were floating dead in space. "How long to fix it?" he asked. "Days, maybe weeks." "I am sorry, Captain." Jack ended the call and looked at his first officer. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was a small woman with red hair and a calm face. Nothing ever seemed to worry her, which Jack found both impressive and annoying. "We are stuck," he said simply. Kate nodded. "I have already sent a distress signal. Help should arrive in about 10 days. 10 days. Jack sighed. "I hope nothing interesting happens in the next 10 days. He did not know that something very interesting was already happening in the sensor room of the Horizon. A young woman named Amy Chen was watching her screens. Amy was the ship's tactical officer, responsible for detecting threats and coordinating the ship's defenses. It was usually a boring job during peacetime, but Amy took it seriously. She frowned at her screen. For a moment, she thought she had seen something, a tiny flicker in the sensor data. It was probably nothing. Space was full of random signals and ghost images. But something made her look again. "That is odd," she muttered to herself. She adjusted the sensors and ran a deep scan of the area around the ship. The results came back empty. There was nothing out there except stars and empty space. Amy shook her head. She was probably just tired. Everyone was tired. Being stranded in space was stressful, even if you were trained for it. She turned back to her normal duties, unaware that she had almost detected the Valorian ship watching them from the darkness. On the shadow of inquiry, Commander Thexero was pleased. His ship's hiding technology was working perfectly. The primitive aliens had no idea they were being observed. "Begin the bioscan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about these creatures. Their biology, their psychology, their weaknesses." "Yes, Commander." The Valorian sensor array was the most advanced in the galaxy. It could analyze any living thing from a great distance. It could count the cells in your body and measure the chemicals in your brain. Many species had tried to copy this technology. All had failed. Thexero watched as the scan began. In a few minutes, he would know if these strange aliens were worth capturing as slaves, or if they were simply animals to be destroyed. He had no idea that this scan would change everything he believed about the universe. The data began to appear on the screen, and slowly, the smile faded from Thexero's face. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The bioscan results filled the screen, and Commander Thexero felt his blood turn cold. In 300 years of service, he had scanned hundreds of species. He had seen peaceful plant eaters with no natural weapons. He had seen fierce predators with claws and teeth. He had seen creatures that lived in poison gas, and creatures that swam in liquid metal. Nothing had ever frightened him until now. "This cannot be correct," he said quietly. "Run the scan again." "I already did, Commander," Crix replied. His voice was shaking. 3 times. "The results are the same." Thexero stared at the data. The alien creatures on that primitive ship were unlike anything in the Valorian database. They were bipedal, with 2 arms and 2 legs. They had soft skin, with no scales or armor. They looked weak. They looked harmless. The scan told a different story. "Their blood," Thexero whispered. "It carries iron." "Yes, Commander." Iron. The very word made Thexero uncomfortable. Iron was a deadly poison to most species in the galaxy. Even tiny amounts could kill a Valorian in minutes. But these creatures had iron flowing through their entire bodies. Their blood was red with it. "And look at their bones," Crix continued. "Many of them show signs of old breaks and fractures. But the bones healed. Commander, some of these creatures have survived injuries that would kill any other species." Thexero looked closer. The scan showed one creature with a metal rod inside its leg. Another had pieces of metal holding its spine together. These were not weapons or tools. They were repairs. Someone had cut these beings open, put metal inside them, and closed them back up. And the beings had survived. "What kind of monsters are these?" Someone on the bridge whispered, but that was not the worst part. Commander Crix said carefully, "The psychological analysis is complete. Show me." The screen changed to display new data. Every crew member on the bridge went silent. The scan measured something called aggression potential. For most species, this number was between 1 and 10. Peaceful species were at the low end. Dangerous predators were at the high end. The most aggressive species the Valorians had ever discovered scored a 12. These creatures scored 37. "That is impossible," Thexero said. "The scan does not lie, Commander. These beings evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme temperatures. They are persistence predators. They hunt by chasing their prey until it dies from exhaustion. They can operate without sleep for long periods. They form pack bonds and fight to protect each other, even when it makes no logical sense." Thexero felt sick. He had heard stories of persistence predators before. They were the stuff of nightmares. Most species hunted by ambush or speed. They caught their prey quickly or gave up. But persistence predators were different. They never stopped. They followed their prey for days, weeks, never resting, never quitting, until the prey simply collapsed. And now 200 of them were floating right in front of his ship. "There is more," Commander Crix said reluctantly. "More? What else could there possibly be?" The scan detected high levels of certain chemicals in their brains: adrenaline, cortisol. These chemicals appear when a creature senses danger. Crix paused. Commander, these readings are from right now. The creatures are producing these chemicals at this very moment. Extra. Understood immediately. They know we are here. It appears so. They cannot see us. Their sensors are too primitive to detect our ship. But somehow, they sense our presence. They are becoming alert. They are preparing for something. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Jack Morrison could not explain the feeling in his gut. Nothing on his screens showed any danger. The sensors reported empty space in all directions. The only sounds were the normal hums and beeps of the ship's systems. Everything seemed fine, but something felt wrong. Jack had learned to trust his instincts during 20 years in the military. Your brain noticed things that your eyes missed. Your body reacted to threats before you could name them. Right now, every instinct he had was screaming that they were not alone. Kate, he said quietly, am I crazy, or does something feel off to you? Lieutenant Sullivan looked at him with sharp eyes. I was going to ask you the same thing. I have had this strange feeling for the last 10 minutes. Like someone is watching us. Exactly like that? Jack stood up from his chair. Around the bridge, he noticed other crew members looking uncomfortable. Danny Reyes had stopped his repair work and was staring at the walls. Amy Chen kept checking her sensors over and over again. Humans had a word for this feeling. They called it being watched. Scientists said it was just superstition, a leftover instinct from ancient times when predators hunted humans in the dark. But Jack had seen too many strange things in space to dismiss any feeling. Amy, he said, I want you to run a deep scan. Everything you have. Maximum range. I already did, Captain. There is nothing out there. Do it again. Use the old methods too. Thermal imaging. Radiation detection. Everything. Amy nodded and went to work. On the shadow of inquiry, Crix suddenly looked up from his console with alarm on his face. Commander, the aliens are scanning again. They are using multiple methods. Some of them are very unusual. Dexrel frowned. Can they detect us? No, our hiding technology is too advanced. But they are trying very hard. Commander, how do they know to look? How can they possibly know we are here? Dexrel did not answer. He was looking at the scan results again, the psychological profile of these impossible creatures. The scan said something that he had ignored before. It said that these creatures had evolved not as the top predators of their world, but as prey. Long ago, they had been hunted by larger, stronger animals. They had survived not by being the biggest or the fastest, but by being the most alert, the most paranoid, the most impossible too. Surprise! They had spent millions of years being watched by predators in the dark. Their bodies had learned to feel when eyes were upon them. Dexrel realized that his ship's advanced hiding technology meant nothing. These creatures did not need sensors or technology. They could feel his presence with something much older and much more powerful. For the first time in his long career, Commander Dexrel felt something he had never felt before. He felt like prey, Commander. Dexrel stared at the screen for a long time. The scan results glowed in the darkness of the bridge, telling him things he did not want to believe. His crew watched him in silence, waiting for orders. Finally, he made a decision. We cannot let fear control us, he said firmly. Yes, these creatures are strange. Yes, they have unusual abilities. But look at their ship. It is primitive. It is damaged. They are stranded and helpless. But Commander Crix began. The scan shows potential. Dexrel interrupted. Potential is not power. A baby predator has potential, but it is still a baby. These creatures may be dangerous in theory, but in practice, they have no shields, no advanced weapons, and no way to escape. We are Valorians. We have conquered species far more impressive than this. He straightened his back and let authority fill his voice. We will make contact. We will show them our strength. When they see what we can do, they will surrender. It is what every species does when they meet the supremacy. The crew looked uncertain, but they followed orders. That was what Valorians did. They followed orders. To cloak the ship, Dexterol commanded. Let them see us. Then fire a warning shot across their bow. Close enough to shake them, far enough to avoid damage. Show them what our weapons can do. Yes, Commander. On the horizon, Amy Chen suddenly jumped in her seat. Captain. Contact. A ship just appeared out of nowhere, bearing 270. Distance, 50 kilometers. Jack Morrison was on his feet instantly. What do you mean, appeared? Where did it come from? I do not know, sir. 1 second, there was nothing, and then Mi's hands moved quickly across her controls. It is big. Much bigger than us. The design is nothing I have ever seen before. Show me. The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. The alien ship was 3 times the size of the horizon. Its black hole seemed to eat light, making it hard to look at directly. Strange shapes and curves covered its surface, technology so advanced it looked like magic. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Jack had ever seen. They were watching us, Kate said quietly. The whole time? They were right there, and we never saw them. Jack felt his heart pounding, but he kept his voice calm. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the horizon, alarms began to sound. Crew members ran to their positions. Weapons systems powered up. Damage control teams prepared for the worst. In engineering, Danny Reyes heard the alarm and cursed. The ship could not run. If it came to a fight, they would have to stand and face whatever was coming. How fast can you get me any power? Captain Morrison's voice came through the comm. The main drive is dead, Captain. But I can give you maneuvering thrusters and weapons. That is all. That will have to be enough. On the alien ship, Commander Thexro watched the human vessel come alive with activity. Lights were turning on all over its hull. He could see hatches opening and weapons appearing from hidden compartments. They are preparing to fight, Crix reported with surprise. Of course they are. It is a natural response. But when they see what we can do, they will change their minds. Dexrel nodded to his weapons officer. Fire the warning shot. Now. The shadow of Inquiry's main cannon glowed with purple energy. A beam of superheated plasma shot across space, passing just 50 meters above the horizon's hull. The heat was intense enough to scorch the human ship's sensors and leave a black mark on the metal. Dexrel smiled. Now they understand. Open a communication channel. I will offer them the chance to Commander. Crix shouted. The human ship is moving. Moving. Their drive is disabled. They are using small thrusters. And they are. Commander, they are turning toward us. Dexrel could not believe what he was seeing. Any sane species, when faced with a superior enemy, would try to escape or surrender. But these humans were doing the opposite. Their damaged, primitive, helpless ship was turning to face the shadow of Inquiry. They were preparing to attack. On the horizon, Lieutenant Ben Harris pushed the maneuvering thrusters to their limits. The ship groaned and shook as it turned faster than it was designed to go. Warning lights flashed across his console, but he ignored them. Steady, Captain, Morrison said. His voice was calm, almost relaxed. Nice and easy, Ben. Captain Kate said urgently, Are you sure about this? That ship could destroy us without trying. Maybe we should try to negotiate. They shot first, Jack replied. That tells me everything I need to know about their intentions. If we show weakness now, we are dead. Our only chance is to show them that fighting us will cost them more than we are worth. He opened a channel to the alien ship. When he spoke, his voice carried across space with cold authority. Unknown vessel, you have committed an act of aggression against a ship of the United Earth Fleet. This is your one and only warning. Stand down immediately, or we will respond with deadly force. There will not be a second chance. On the shadow of Inquiry, the bridge crew looked at their commander in shock. Did they just threaten us? The weapons officer asked. Dexrel felt something strange rising in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as anger. How dare these primitive creatures threaten him? How dare they point their pathetic weapons at a Valorian warship? They are bluffing, he said through clenched teeth. They must be bluffing. No species would be foolish enough to attack us in their condition. But even as he said it, he watched the human ship complete its turn. Its weapons were now pointed directly at his vessel, and on the human captain's face, visible through the video channel, Thexrile saw no fear. He saw something much worse. He saw a predator that had found its prey. Commander Crix said quietly, "What do we do?" Thexrile made another decision born from pride and centuries of easy victories. Disable their weapons. Show them they cannot fight us, but do not destroy them yet. I want to capture some alive for study. The weapons officer hesitated for just a moment. Fire. Thexrile commanded. The shadow of Inquiry's secondary weapons opened up, sending beams of energy toward the human ship. And in that moment, everything changed. The first plasma bolt screamed toward the horizon, and Petty Officer Scott Adams did something that should have been impossible. He shot it down. Scott was sitting at the point defense station, controlling a small rapid-fire cannon designed to destroy incoming missiles. No one had ever tried to use it against energy weapons before. The idea was ridiculous. Energy moved at the speed of light. No one could react fast enough, but Scott was not thinking about what was possible. He was thinking about his crewmates. He was thinking about the captain who had given him a second chance when no one else would. He was thinking about Amy Chen, who always saved him dessert from the mess hall. His hands moved before his brain could tell them to stop. The cannon fired a stream of metal particles into the path of the plasma bolt. The particles scattered the energy, turning a deadly beam into a harmless flash of light. On the bridge, Captain Morrison saw what had happened and smiled. "All batteries return fire," he ordered. "Show them what humans can do." The Horizon had no energy weapons. It had no shields. What it had were railguns, simple machines that used magnetic force to throw pieces of metal very, very fast. The first shot left the cannon at 20 kilometers per second, on the shadow of Inquiry. Commander Thexrile saw the human ship fire. He was not worried. His shields could stop any energy weapon in the galaxy. They absorbed and dispersed power with perfect efficiency. But the human weapon was not energy. It was a solid chunk of tungsten, dense and heavy and moving faster than anything the Valorians had ever seen. It hit the shield and did not disperse. It did not scatter. It simply kept going, carrying so much force that the shield could not hold. The tungsten round punched through and slammed into the Valorian ship's hull. The impact shook the entire vessel. Alarms began screaming. Crew members fell from their stations. "What was that?" Thexrile shouted. "A projectile," Crix answered with disbelief in his voice. "They fired a physical projectile at us. Our shields are not designed for kinetic impacts. They are designed for energy weapons." "That is insane. No civilized species uses kinetic weapons." Another impact rocked the ship, and another, and another. The humans were not stopping. They were not pausing to see the effects of their weapons. They were firing as fast as their cannons could reload, pouring metal into the Valorian ship without mercy. On the horizon, the crew worked like a machine with many parts. Each person knew their job and did it without hesitation. There was no panic. There was no confusion. There was only focus. In engineering, Danny Reyes was keeping the power flowing to the weapons. A conduit had exploded near his station, burning his arm, but he did not stop working. He wrapped a piece of cloth around the wound and kept going. "I need more power to the forward guns," Amy Chen called through the com. "You will have it in 10 seconds," Danny shouted back. His fingers flew across the controls, rerouting energy from systems that did not matter. Life support could run at half power for a while. The lights in empty corridors could go dark. Everything that could be spared went to the weapons. On the bridge, Ensign Megan Torres felt something crack in her arm when a console exploded beside her. The pain was incredible. For a moment, her vision went white. Then she took a deep breath, gritted her teeth, and went back to her station. "Damage report," she said, her voice only shaking a little. "Port side armor is holding. Minor fires on decks 3 and 4. No casualties yet." Yet the word hung in the air. Everyone knew this could not last forever. The alien ship was bigger, more advanced, and barely scratched by human weapons. Sooner or later, something would get through, but not yet. Not while they could still fight. Commander Dexrel was no longer smiling. His beautiful ship was damaged. His shields were failing. His crew was afraid. How is this possible? He demanded. We are the Valorian supremacy. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. How can these primitives hurt us? No one had an answer. The scan data was still on his screen, and now Vextrel understood what it truly meant. These creatures were not just physically tough, they were mentally tough. They did not give up. They did not surrender. When pushed into a corner, they did not curl up and die. They pushed back. A particularly large impact knocked out the main lights on the bridge. In the darkness, Vextrel could see the faces of his crew, lit only by the glow of emergency panels. They were terrified. He was terrified. Target their bridge, he ordered. Full power. End this now. The main cannon of the Shadow of Inquiry charged up. This was not a warning shot. This was a killing blow. On the horizon, Amy Chen saw the energy build up on her sensors. She knew what it meant. Captain, they are charging their main weapon. If that hits us, I know. Captain Morrison's voice was steady. Ben, can you move us? I can try, sir. The ship lurched as Ben Harris pushed the thrusters beyond their limits. Metal groaned. Systems screamed warnings. But the horizon moved. Dodging to the left, just as the alien cannon fired, the plasma beam missed the bridge by less than 10 meters. It hit the rear section of the ship instead, tearing through armor and destroying the already damaged main drive. But the bridge survived. The crew survived, and they kept fighting. Chief Petty Officer Laura Kim coordinated the damage control teams, sending crew members to seal breaches and put out fires. She had cuts on her face and smoke in her lungs, but her voice never wavered. Forward teams, Section 7. Rear teams contain the fire and engineering. Move, people, move. In engineering, Danny Reyes looked at the destruction around him. Half his equipment was gone. 3 of his people were injured. The main drive was completely destroyed now, beyond any hope of repair. But the weapons still worked. Danny's status? The captain's voice came through. We are still in the fight. Captain, that was all that mattered. On the Shadow of Inquiry, Commander Vextrel watched the human ship continue to fire despite the damage it had taken. He watched its crew keep working, despite injuries that would have killed any Valorian. And finally, he understood. The scan had warned him. These creatures were persistence predators. They did not stop. They never stopped. You could hurt them, burn them, break them, and they would keep coming. They would keep fighting until they won or until they were completely destroyed. There was no surrender in them. For the first time in his life, Vextrel considered something he had never considered before: retreat. The battle lasted 17 minutes. In galactic terms, that was nothing. Some wars lasted centuries. Some conflicts burned across generations. 17 minutes was barely enough time to finish a meal, but those 17 minutes changed everything. The Shadow of Inquiry drifted in space. Dark and silent, its shields were gone. Its weapons were destroyed. Its engines had failed after a lucky railgun shot hit the main power system. Small fires burned in dozens of compartments. The proud warship of the Valorian supremacy is now nothing more than a floating wreck. Commander Vextrel sat in his chair on the darkened bridge, waiting for death. That was how it worked in the galaxy. When you lost a battle, the winner destroyed you. That was the rule. That was how the Valorians did it. That was how everyone did it. Commander Crick said quietly, "The human ship is approaching. I know. They are hailing us." Dexrel almost laughed. What was there to talk about? But he was curious. He wanted to know what these strange creatures would say before they killed him. Open the channel. The screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human ship. It was damaged too. Smoke filled the air. Sparks fell from broken systems. Several crew members had obvious injuries, but they were alive. All of them. And in the center of the image stood their captain, the one called Morrison. His face was dirty with smoke and sweat. There was blood on his uniform, though Vexrel could not tell if it was his own or someone else's. He did not look like a conqueror. He did not look like a monster. He looked tired. "Commander," the human said, "your ship is disabled. You have no weapons and no way to escape. But I am not here to destroy you. I am here to offer help." Vexrel blinked. "Help. Your vessel has damage to your life support systems. We detected dangerous gases building up in your lower decks. If you do not fix that soon, your crew will start dying. We can send a team to help with repairs." You want to help us? After we attacked you?" The human captain shrugged. "The fight is over. What happens next is up to us. We can be enemies, or we can be something else." Vexrel did not understand. This was not how things worked. Winners took everything. Losers died. That was the natural order. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help the people who tried to kill you?" Captain Morrison was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Because we know what it is like to be helpless. We know what it is like to be at someone else's mercy. And we decided a long time ago that we would not become the thing that hurt us." Paused. "We are not interested in your submission, Commander. We are interested in your friendship. The galaxy is big and dark and full of dangers. Nobody should have to face it alone." The bridge of the Valorian ship was silent. Every crew member was staring at the screen, trying to process what they were hearing. "I am sending a boarding party," Captain Morrison continued. "They will help with your repairs. They will provide medical aid. And when your ship can fly again, you will be free to go. No conditions. No demands. Just one favor." "What favor?" "Remember this day. Remember that humans could have destroyed you and chose not to. And maybe someday, when you meet another species that is weak and helpless, you will remember what we did here. Maybe you will make a different choice than you would have made before." The channel closed. An hour later, the first human shuttle docked with the Shadow of Inquiry. Vexrel went to meet them personally, still not quite believing what was happening. The shuttle door opened, and a small group of humans stepped out. They were carrying tools and medical supplies. At their head was a large human male with a kind face. He wore a military uniform, but his weapon was holstered. "Sergeant Chris Lane," the human said, extending his hand. "We are here to help." Vexrel looked at the hand. He had read about this gesture in the scan data. It was called a handshake. Humans did it to show they were not holding weapons. It was a sign of trust, slowly, carefully. Vexrel reached out and took the human's hand. It was warm, strong, full of life. "Thank you," Vexrel said. The words felt strange in his mouth. He had never said them to anyone outside his own species. Sergeant Lane smiled. "That is what neighbors do." Over the next several hours, humans and Valorians worked side by side. They repaired damaged systems together. They treated injured crew members together. They put out fires and sealed breaches and did all the hard, dirty work of keeping a broken ship alive, and they talked. The Valorians learned that humans came from a small blue planet called Earth. They learned that humans had only been in space for a few centuries. They learned that humans had fought terrible wars against each other before finally choosing peace. The humans learned that the Valorians controlled a vast empire. They learned that the Valorians had never met a species they could not conquer. They learned that before today. The Valorians had never considered the possibility of friendship with other species. When the repairs were complete, Commander Vexrel stood with Captain Morrison on the bridge of the Shadow of Inquiry. "I do not understand you," Vexrel admitted. "You are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. You could have destroyed us, Isley. Why did you show mercy?" Morrison thought about the question for a long time. "'Cause mercy is what separates us from the darkness," he said finally. "We have enough strength to destroy. Any species can learn to destroy. But it takes real strength to build, to heal, to forgive. That is what we want to be. Not the scariest thing in the galaxy, just the best neighbors we can be." Vexrel was quiet for a moment. Then he did something no Valorian commander had ever done before. He bowed his head in respect. "I will tell my people about you," he said. "I will tell them what you did here. I cannot promise they will listen, but I will try." Morrison nodded. "That is all anyone can ask." Two ships parted ways. The shadow of inquiry limped toward Valorian space. The horizon waited for rescue. Its crew exhausted but alive. And somewhere in the vast database of the Valorian supremacy, a new file was created. It contained all the scan data, all the battle records, and a personal note from Commander Thexrel. The note said simply, "We scanned a human warship, expecting to find primitives. We were not ready for what we found. We found monsters who chose to be kind. We found predators who chose to be friends. We found a species that could have destroyed us, but instead saved our lives. I do not know what the future holds, but I know this: the galaxy will never be the same. The humans are coming. And somehow, against all reason, I think that might be a good thing." The stars were no longer quiet in that part of the galaxy. Something new had arrived. Something wonderful. Something human.